So when I was about 18, I decided to become a vegetarian. Now, this was met with criticism and ridicule. My mum told me that I would die if I didn't eat meat.
Die!
He does.
You will die!
Sylvester!
So one of the things that I decided I would try was tofu. Now, I'd never had tofu before. It certainly was not anything that my parents ever used. So my mum bought me some tofu and she made a curry out of it. Now, she would have had no idea how to prepare or cook tofu. She would have just put it in, took it out of the packet and put it in the curry like she would have done meat. Anyway, it was disgusting, and it really kind of almost put me off being a vegetarian. So I never had tofu again for many, many years. Years later, I was playing in Jungle Line, and a few people in the band there were vegetarian, and they ate a lot of Thai food, Thai takeaways, and they used to eat tofu, and I'd not even considered it since that time because it was just so bad. But they swore by it and said it was really good and that I should give it another try. So I did. I went out and bought some tofu, and this time, you know, the internet was available, so I learned how to actually prepare it by squeezing the water out, etc., etc., and then making some kind of it must have been a Thai dish, I guess. And again, it was disgusting.
What the hell?
Couldn't for the life of me figure out how people could actually like this stuff. It had no flavour whatsoever. It had the texture was the nearest thing I could compare it to would be like egg white, but without any flavour at all. But yeah, compared to other meat alternatives, it was still the worst I tried. Then I tried it from an actual Thai takeaway. So here we are, boiled rice. And that was completely different. The texture was totally different. It was more chewy, you know, sometimes crisp on the outside and softer in the middle, and that was actually all right. I wouldn't go as far as saying it was nice, but it was the best I'd ever tried up until at that point. And then my girlfriend at the time, she made a meal using tofu, and that was the first time where I'd had tofu and actually enjoyed it. The meal was fantastic. There was lemongrass in there, ginger, garlic, chilies, so much flavour, and it made sense. The tofu made sense. I couldn't imagine that dish having meat in it, or maybe fish, but meat would have just been too heavy. The only problem was, about half an hour after I'd finished eating it, I was hungry again. So, but yeah, it was a step forward in the right direction. Then I had it in miso soup, where again it made total sense. But then I started buying packets of tofu from Chinese supermarkets, and this had already been deep fried, and that was the best one for me that we made at home, and I was making it in green curries and stuff like that. And it was really tasty, and it really worked with the dishes I was using it with. When we went to Southeast Asia, well, I had in Vietnam in particular, we had a dish which was tomato tofu, and it was this tiny little cafe restaurant. I mean, restaurant's not really the word, but you basically sat in the street on benches about this high, and they brought the food from God knows where, and it was the best tofu I'd ever had. It was amazing, and we went back for more, and more, and more. We must have had it half a dozen times in the time we were in Vietnam. It was really good. It was the best tofu by far. Then we went to Myanmar, and we went to a place called the Tofu Village. Now, this village pretty much exists, its entire economy is based on making tofu and selling tofu to restaurants. and we had a tour around the little village. It was great, it was a fantastic experience, and they showed us how they made the tofu, etc, etc. But the weird thing was, this was like no other tofu I'd ever tasted. It was like really crispy on the outside, and on the inside it was like potato. It was almost like it was like some kind of deep fried potato snack, and it was served with a dip, and it was just so Moorish. It was amazing. It tasted nothing like tofu. The texture was nothing like any tofu I'd ever had. So that, I would say, that was the best one. Then I found out it was made from chickpea. It's chickpea tofu, not soya. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought tofu by definition was made from soya, but apparently in Myanmar, I think that's the right way to say it, they make it from chickpea. Now, I was talking about this to someone yesterday, and it got me thinking, I've never tried to make this chickpea tofu. I wonder how easy it is to make chickpea tofu, or how difficult it is. I must investigate. So onto the internet I went, typed in chickpea tofu, found a couple of recipes, both of them saying Burmese tofu, and it looks remarkably easy to make. Literally, I only need one ingredient that I haven't already got. It's just, you know, water and sugar and a bit of turmeric, and the one thing I haven't got is chickpea flour, which you can get pretty much anywhere. I think you can even get it in supermarkets. I don't think you have to even go to the continental markets. So right now I'm out in the middle of bloody nowhere, but I am hoping to pass some kind of supermarket, or hopefully a continental market, which will definitely have it, and I'm going to buy some chickpea flour, and in this video I'm going to make some chickpea tofu. Let's do it. Let's see if Osmond's has the chickpea flour, and hopefully not a sack full. Didn't work, but there you go. Where is the flour? Ah. Oh yes, this is what I need. Burmese tofu, here we come. Okay, so this is basically the ingredients. So we've got 120 grams of chickpea flour, a quarter teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of salt, and I'm basically going to whisk this all together, and then I'm going to add 375 millilitres of water into there, and then whisk that so it's nice and smooth, and that'll be the end of stage one. It's very easy to make. Who knows what it'll turn out like. Okay, that's all whisked together. So the next stage is to boil 375 millilitres of water in there, and then once it's boiled, reduce the heat and add that, and then whisk for about 8 minutes. Yeah, until it becomes thick and glossy, apparently. So that's stage 2. Okay, so that's been on for about 4 minutes, and as you can see, it's gone really thick, very custardy. It does say to do it for about 8 minutes. Sorry, let me just get a light. So I'm just going to keep it going. Right, so that's been thickening. I've had it on low to medium heat for about 8 minutes. It's already kind of thickened. See, it's not moving around that much. This is lightly oiled. I'm going to leave that in there for at least an hour, probably a bit longer, and then hopefully when I come back to it, it'll just come out and I can chop it into whatever size I want, and I have my chickpea tofu. We shall see. Right, that's been sitting for a couple of hours. It's definitely firm, so all there is to do now is to chop it into the
pieces the size that I want, which I'm hoping this thing all just comes out and then I can start slicing it. Oh, look at that. Feels like tofu. Right, so that's chopped up into little pieces. It's firm, feels like tofu, so I'm going to do a nice, I'm going to fry it to try and make it crispy on the outside and yeah, see what happens. Okay, so I just fried off half of the tofu, and as I was cooking it, it became pretty clear that it wasn't going to be like the stuff I had in Myanmar, because that was really crispy on the outside and really soft in the middle. This is not really crispy, not much, but it's actually really nice. As far as tofu goes, that's pretty awesome. And the other half I deep fried, and again, it's not really come out like it did in Myanmar, but it is very crispy but very soft in the middle. It's really good. So easy to make. I didn't realise making tofu was so easy. Right, so what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to serve that with this honey glazed chicken. Just need that to thicken up a bit.